The content of Kingdom of Healing with Kimberly Mateo, powered by 710 Radio, is intended for general information purposes only. It is not designed to provide listeners with specific and personal medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional services, or any advice. The programs are not meant to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Individuals with health problems should always consult their healthcare provider for professional medical advice, medications, and/or treatments. Kingdom of Healing also does not promote anyone's individual practices, programs, agendas, particular treatments, healthcare programs, providers, hospitals, and/or medical centers. The views expressed by show host and their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Kingdom of Healing. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. We encourage you to always seek professional advice or care for any problems which you may have. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to the Kingdom of Healing or 710 Radio or the show hosts whose words and or opinions appear from or on this radio show.
Live on iHeartRadio, powered by 710 Radio. This is the Kingdom of Healing with Kimberly Mateo. So grab you a pen and a paper, kick your feet up, and get ready for some serious knowledge to be dropped on you. Because Kimberly Mateo is a nationally certified naturopath, master herbalist, iridologist, a nutritionist, and a holistic healer since 1977. She shares 35 plus years of knowledge and experience to listeners who are interested in learning and overcoming health challenges naturally. So without further delay, here is the host of your show, Kimberly Mateo.
Thank you for joining me again today on Kingdom of Healing. This is Kimberly Mateo, and I'm a traditional naturopath and a master herbalist, and I hope what I share with you today will help you or a loved one overcome whatever challenges you're dealing with your health. Today I want to talk about the effects of stress on the immune system. And we live in just such stressful conditions, and you really don't realize how that beats you down. And you get invited places, or you go to large gatherings, and you've got people sneezing and coughing, and that's in the air, and you're breathing it as well. And before you know it, within 24 to 48 hours, you're coming down with whatever cucamonga is what I call it, cucamonga, that you were exposed to. And one of the biggest insults for the immune system is sugar. And there is so much sugar in everything, and that absolutely includes the high fructose corn syrup. That sugar paralyzes the immune system. The other thing is if you're eating meats that have nitrates and nitrites in them, if you're eating foods that are packaged foods, prepared, add some water, add some butter, whatever, to it, mix it up, put it in the oven. These prepared foods have a lot of bacterial inhibitors. And when you ingest those, they actually inhibit the good bacterial growth that's going on in your small intestines. That is, 70% of that is your immune system. So sugar paralyzes the immune system. And if you have a high diet where you're consuming sugar all the time and you're wondering why you can't seem to stay well, that you're catching everything every time somebody's sick. The other thing is, so much controversy on the vaccines. And there's a lot coming forward now, a lot of doctors coming forward that are talking about these research studies are flawed. There's things that are omitted from there. They're cutting things out. These are not, the bad side effects and stuff are not things that are being published. And the shedding that takes place, a person who's been recently vaccinated is at more risk of passing on what they were vaccinated for than someone who is unvaccinated. So these are all things that are challenging to the immune system. Talked a lot about the air. There's really not a lot we can do about the air that we're breathing. One thing that is wonderful as far as I'm concerned is it's about time that a country stepped up and filed a lawsuit against what we have going on in our atmosphere. And Canada has done that. They have filed a lawsuit against the United States because those trails up there in the air are not just from a regular plane. These are planes that are equipped with tanks in them that are filled with toxins that can no longer be put in the waterways because, 5-6 years ago, the pharmaceutical industry finally said, don't dispose of your drugs by flushing them in the toilet, because the municipal water districts are coming up with so many toxins in the water because of what's been flushed into the waterways for so many decades. And, that water, we've talked about it as well before, the water is just manipulated with a wide, huge range of chemicals that do not even take care of all of the pathogens in the water.
And we really have to be careful now. Did
Go
you
ahead.
see the post that I've made, about, there was a red flag that we got caught on to about, this transgender thing that's going on.
Yes.
Okay, we call that, there's a reason that they want us to focus on that and not focus on other things.
Well,
right?
there's a lot of distractions.
Because, look, right now, did you know that there's 2 nuclear plants here in the United States that are leaking right now? Have you heard anything about that on the mainstream media?
I have not heard a word.
Not a word.
Right.
And it's being leaked in to the rivers system that they are sitting by in New York and one in Florida.
What's leaking in New York? Do you know which one it was? I mean, there's numerous. There's
Indian.
Well, because we had 3 Mile Island.
Not 3 Mile Island. It's something Indian.
Okay, so it's to think that nuclear is okay. It's not.
No, because they're saying that this one could be worse than Fukushima, as bad as Fukushima. I'm telling you, and that's bad.
That's horrifically scary.
Right.
And this is what happens when we build power plants, nuclear power plants. And I was reading not that long ago that it doesn't matter what nuclear power plant it is, anywhere in the world, there is a certain amount of residual effect that goes into the environment from any nuclear plant, no matter how clean and how under control it is. There's always that margin for a certain amount of envirotoxins. And I was watching a documentary on a nuclear plant, and you know what? I think it was up in New York, a nuclear plant, but this documentary was not that particular location. But these people, they're sitting on properties that they can't sell. Who wants them?
Right.
What I couldn't understand is sometimes there are things that are just so big that nobody wants to lose their home. Nobody wants to go through bankruptcy court. But I'm going to tell you something. If you're living close to a nuclear plant and it is leaking, and it is affecting the environment that you're living in, sorry, you need to cut your losses.
Get the hell out of
and
there.
you need to walk away from it.
Right, because if you don't think it could happen there, look at Chernobyl. What happened there.
Yeah.
How many hundreds of thousands of people were displaced.
And the thing is that kelp and algin, which is a form of algae, is excellent for absorbing radioactivity in the body and pulling it from the body, pulling it out of the bones where it likes to migrate and settle. And kelp and algin, you can find that on kingdomofhealing.com, and purchase that if maybe you're going through radiation therapy and you don't want that stuff settling around in your body, and detoxifying from that safely. Algin, it's under the single herbs category is where you would find that, and it's very specific for what that does with radioactivity when you've been exposed to it. But the thing is that it's just amazing how unconcerned people are and take things for granted, and then they're in a full blown out panic when they finally get a bad diagnosis from what their exposure has been. And we've got to get to the point where in order to build your health, you have to quit breaking it down.
Right.
And living in an extremely toxic environment. And the sad thing is with nuclear stuff, you don't see it, you don't smell it, you don't taste it. It's a silent killer until, from a catastrophic standpoint, someone in your family or multiple people in your family and everybody in your community is all pretty much dealing with the same thing.
Right.
And that's what ends up happening. Because when something's going on in your household and 6 blocks away something's going on in their household, the 2 and 2 does not get put together until you end up bumping into each other waiting around in the doctor's waiting room, or realizing that, somebody a couple doors down from me, well, they're kind of dealing with the same thing. It takes it to be at a catastrophic level before they go, whoa, wait a minute, these are my neighbors, and my neighbors are dealing with the same thing. We've got a problem.
Right.
Well, yeah, have fun with taking it to that corporation. They're going to deny everything. They're going to have their attorneys send you letters that, well, we're tested and, we're inspected and we're perfectly fine, and you're out of your head, and I hope you have good insurance to take care of whatever problem you're dealing with. But, it's like last show, I talked about the number one killer of our children in the United States. The number one killer is cancer. Now, come on. That's horrific. That is just horrific. And at the age that I am, when I was a child, you never heard of cancer with children. This was something you did not hear about. That was for the really elderly that had that. We talked also about the diabetes. Diabetes type 2 is diagnosed more with children than diabetes type 1. Which, in a way, if you're going to have diabetes type 1 or diabetes type 2, neither one is good. They're both awful. Diabetes type 1 is very different than diabetes type 2.
Right.
Diabetes type 2 is manageable. Get on it. Clean out your cabinets. Clean out your refrigerator. do an about face. You have to feed your family differently. I had a telephone call last week where 4 children out of 5 in a family, and one was an 8-month-old, had blood sugar levels of over 200.
Oh, okay.
One child was, I think it was like 280 something. The physician assistant was upset that they even took a blood sugar level on the children. And I think that set the pace immediately in the office for the doctor to be very nonchalant, a matter-of-fact attitude, and was upset that was done. Well, they did an A1C, which that's over a period of time, tells you kind of what the blood sugars were running. And the blood sugar on the one child, the A1C, was, averaged about 150. But I'm here to tell you, 150 is not good.
No.
But the doctor, do you know what the doctor's attitude, the physician assistant's attitude was?
What's that?
That's a normal blood sugar for a child who eats sugar. Now I'm going to tell you something. You want to continue to feed your children sugar and have an A1C that averages out. It was in the normal range, but it was right at the top of high.
Right. Right.
And if you think it's okay for your child to have 150 blood sugar, I'm going to tell you something. It's not okay. Because what you're doing right now is that sugar levels, those sugar levels are eventually, they're going to take a toll on the kidneys. They're going to take a toll on the heart. They're going to take a toll on the eyesight. And maybe you won't see it today or the next year or 2 years. But that child is going to grow up, get into young adulthood, and they're going to start having some serious health problems. Because if you don't change it now and teach them a healthier way to eat, you are in the process of building disease. And that's how that all develops. You build it. You earn good health, and hey, you build diseases. You build diseases by lifestyle choices that you make. And emotions. Every emotion can manifest itself into an illness with a particular organ. People who are angry and upset all the time, hey, you're going to deal with liver problems. That's just a fact. And so they can manifest into an actual organ eventually struggling. It's not okay for children to be consuming a lot of these fast foods and these convenience foods and these packaged and boxed up sweets and having a high diet of that, and then drinking a lot. Even juice needs to be diluted. Half juice, half water. Not juice. You don't give them 6 ounces of straight juice. 3 ounces of juice, 3 ounces of water. Let them learn to develop a taste for that being watered down, because even there's too much sugar when it's all fruit like that. And so that can have, it's, in a lot of the juices anyway, especially if they're the frozen concentrates. There's a lot of them that have the high fructose corn syrup added to it. And that really has to get out of your kitchen. You need to get rid of it. There's better choices, and I've talked about that before. The non-GMO pure cane sugar,
right?
Honey, and honey that's local. You want to always find honey that's local to where you live, and it's very beneficial for the immune system. But honey is one of those things that if you have a child that is 2 or younger, you do not give that child honey So babies can't have honey. Toddlers can't have honey.
Okay.
2 and under. Stevia. It does have a little bit of an aftertaste. A friend of mine he's a scientist, and he did remove that aftertaste, and I don't know how long it's going to take before it hits the grocery store shelves, but that's going to be big.
Right.
It's going to be big. You can remove the taste, to which he did, removing that aftertaste to stevia. Stevia has a place in the sweetening of everything. It's 400 times sweeter than sugar. You do not need as much with it. It does not affect the blood glucose level, so it will not spike the glucose level high like sugar will, and high fructose corn syrup will. And carbohydrates. Children are consuming, even though sugar is a simple carbohydrate, they're eating too many other simple carbohydrates. White refined flour is a carbohydrate, and it's a simple carbohydrate, and it's absorbed quickly. And it converts to sugar. So you need to remember is that your carbohydrates convert to sugar as well. So if you exceed carbohydrate levels that your body cannot metabolize and break down, it's not using it for energy. It's converting it for sugar, but it's going into storage as fat is what's going to happen. So this is where there's too much white bread. There's still too much white bread. You go to the grocery store. What's wiped out the most on the shelf? The white bread.
Right.
It's still being too much.
That's why I'm glad I eat what I do, because it's always there.
Yeah, because it's always there. It's always there. But the sugar, again, with the immune system, it paralyzes the immune system. And when it paralyzes the immune system and you're exposed to things, then whatever bacteria or virus you've been exposed to has an opportunity to manifest and replicate in your body. I just learned about a young mother who went in for a surgery procedure, and this is a relative of a really good, I'm friends with the family, and it was her husband's side of the family. I believe it was his niece. And what a horrific, sad, terrible, terrible situation. A mother of, I believe it was 3 little ones, and went in for a surgical procedure and ended up with a horrific megabacteria. And, wow, once it manifest in the legs and the arms and on her face, she slipped into, I believe it was a coma. And the doctors wanted to do amputations. And in the course of trying to decide what to do, along with all the big gun antibiotics that were not working, this young woman lost her life.
Oh my goodness.
Over going in for a procedure that is become fairly common. But I'm going to tell you, these hospitals, the viruses and bacteria that are airborne, and they're resistant. They're resistant to the antibiotics and stuff to manage them. And 27 years old, someone...
How long ago was this?
This just happened this past week.
Oh my goodness.
But, this is happening every day.
Was that here in this state?
No, it wasn't in this state.
Okay.
It was in another state.
Right.
But this is going on everywhere. This just happens to have touched a family that I know. And there's many families every day out there that, their lives are, let's face it, you're just never the same. Your life it's different. It's never the same after this. So someone lost, their mommy, these little children lost their mother, someone lost their daughter, they lost their grandchild, their granddaughter, they lost their sister, they lost their aunt, they lost their niece. And it affects a variety of different people, a large amount of people. And so these megaviruses and megabacterias, we need powerful immune systems and bodies that your pH is in balance. Because like I've said before, if that pH is under 6.5, if its pH is over 8.5, you're getting into a problem where it's not good to have your pH real high alkaline either. I mean, you're going to get into troubles as well.
Right.
But the thing is it's that range of that 6.5 to technically about 8.0. That's the ideal, or 7.0 to 8.0. That's the perfect pH level to be absorbing and uptaking all of the nutrients that you're getting in your supplements, in your food. If you vary either below that or above that, you're not uptaking your iodine. You're not uptaking your magnesium, your calcium, your potassium, your zinc, your selenium, chromium, and none of your B complex, your fat soluble vitamins, your A, your E, your D. Your body doesn't know what to do with them. It cannot utilize them. So, and when you cannot utilize and uptake those nutrients, you cannot build or maintain your health. So it's extremely important from a pH standpoint. And you can pick those pH strips. You can test your urine, pass it through your urine. You can also test your saliva. Your saliva will tell you what your body's pH is.
Okay.
And there's some of the early shows, and I've gone through a lot of that with foods that are acid, foods that are alkaline. Your leafy green vegetables, your broccoli, your cauliflower, cabbage, things like that. Those are pineapple. Lemons and limes may be acidic in their natural state, but they're alkaline in the body. Adding that into, pineapple chunks and lemon and limes, cucumbers in your water will help to naturally bring that pH up in your water, because if you're buying purified water, that water is acidic. And, Fiji water is 7.5. So if you're getting water off the shelf that's reasonably priced, because now they're starting to sell alkaline water, but it's like $2.50 a gallon. And I don't think it's staying that stable on the shelf. One of the things with Fiji water is it is extremely high in silica, and they've found that high levels of silica in the body will leach out things like mercury and aluminum. It will leach that out of the body, take it from the cell and get it out of there. It also has the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier and to remove the aluminum and mercury that settle in the tissue of the brain. So oat straw is extremely high in natural occurring silica. Oat straw tea. When my youngest one was, when he was a baby and a toddler and through his growth development years, I would make oat straw tea. And it's very nondescript. It has a very mild taste to it. It's very easy to mix it with other things. And I would make oat straw tea and then strain all that oat straw out of it. And then I used that to mix with whatever he was drinking. Use it as a base for other herb teas to add other herbs to. And, the only thing that it did with him was he had an amazing muscle and bone structure, grew to be 6'8", never not once ever had a growing pain, doesn't to this day have a cavity in his head, never did as a child, strong teeth, fantastic skin, beautiful complexion, hair that grew like crazy, just thick, grew so fast. And, silica is used for the skin and the hair and the nails. And, to grow 6'8" and not have any types of problems whatsoever, even with ligaments and tendons.
Right.
No pain there,
I mean, that is amazing to hear, actually.
He never had. And the other thing, I never went through any of that with a problem with him cutting his teeth. It's just like his teeth would come in and, and you'd take a good look in his mouth and it's like, wow. It's like, wow. Look at all these teeth that came in. Kid didn't miss a beat. Didn't get a fever, didn't have all that drooling, didn't have the fussiness, the crying, needing to use, I would have used homeopathic teething tablets, anyway, because that's what, I would recommend with my grandchildren and anyone else, because, that Oragel and stuff like that, it not only numbs their gums, but it numbs their throat. And you want to be careful what you're feeding an infant, that when you're putting Oragel in their mouth and they swallow that and it numbs the back of their throat, it puts them at risk of choking.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, stop and think about it. If the back of your throat is numb,
right,
it is going to be
going to make your tongue numb too.
It's going to make your tongue numb, and it's it's just, there's homeopathic little teething pills out there, and there's also homeopathic liquids that they're fantastic. And what's in that? Well, calcium, silica, magnesium, things that are needed to help, bring the teeth in. And so it's there's better ways to do it. We're given everything we ever needed. That we were given everything that we would ever need to take care of any of our problems. I mean, the herbs are, if your doctor says to you that they're unscientific, well, that's just not true. They
are
antidotal. Well, you know what? My attitude with that is, I would trust something that was anecdotal, passed down for generations, that consistently took care of the same thing.
Right.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's a study. They did it. It worked. They used it repeatedly, consistently for a specific type of problem.
Right.
And now that we're finding out that so much with these research papers, where I'm not going to say that I don't believe science, because I do. But the thing is that when we're lied to, and we are being lied to, a lot of these studies are manipulated. Things are removed that they find in these studies, and they just leave it off.
Right.
Or they alter it. I'm sorry. And then you want me to believe in that? There's too much coming forward about all of this going on, especially in the vaccine category. I have talked about, these doctors that are coming forward, and you can find that on plenty of the YouTube. Just type in vaccine exposure.
Right.
On YouTube. A lot of these medical doctors, they've posted this. It's there's and I was talking about Dr. William Thompson, who Dr. Wakefield was a scientist with the CDC over 10 years ago. He was destroyed over coming forward with admitting what was going on. And Dr. William Thompson recently, as of about a little over a year ago, came forward with research that was things being omitted from it. And, no, we can't have that on there. And we don't want people reading that. So let's just leave it off and continue what we're doing because of the...
Right, worried about their funding more than anything else.
Worried about the money that they can be making. And another thing, too, and I talked about that before on a show, is the majority of our vaccines, they are manufactured in communist China. So stop and think about that. They're manufactured in communist China. And because it's communist China, when our FDA goes over there, they're not allowed into those manufacturing plants. The people that are head of the manufacturing plants come out and tell them it's all copacetic, everything's good, no problems. Maybe they had a little problem with this or that. They took care of it. Everything's blah, blah, blah. And they don't even go inside. They're not allowed inside. And they just turn around and come back to the United States. And that, I believe, is done every 7th year.
Every 7 years, they get a paid vacation to China, pretty much.
Well, the thing is, and it's like, that's far more protected than, the awareness of the lead in the paint for the toys for children coming from China.
Right.
That was all over the news. That was all over the news. But it's not all over the news when they're trying to push you into vaccinating. They don't let you know that the largest majority of vaccines are made in communist China. And they only get to go over and have a face-to-face talk with them in the parking lot once every 7 years. I think that's serious. That's very serious. And again, if you eat well, if you supplement, this is a way to build strong immune systems and be able to stay strong and healthy. A healthy cell does not get sick. That's why it's so important to quit breaking the body down. And stress does that, and you don't handle stress well when you have a diet that is so incomplete of nutrients. So there's a great product that the company has. It's called THIM-J, THIM-J. And that's a combination that has rose hips and broccoli cabbage, Siberian ginseng, red clover, parsley, wheatgrass, horseradish. That is so dense with nutrients that it is a formula that's very, very good for the thymus gland. And the thymus gland in children, when you're exposed to something, the bloodstream, the immune system takes that to the thymus gland. The thymus gland is where the manufacturing of the antibody comes from. So as we get older, we've been exposed to just about everything under the sun. And so that thymus gland doesn't have the need for creating the antibodies anymore, because you already have those antibodies floating around in your bloodstream. So as we get older and we get into adult life, the thymus gland starts to shrink. But it's pretty good size in a child, and that's because their little life has just begun. And there's such an array of different things out there in the world that they need to have their little bodies, as they're exposed to it, they need to make those antibodies. So, this combination is an extremely high antioxidant, and it's designed to combat the effects of the stress on the immune system. So the herbs that are in here, they scavenge after free radicals. It improves the blood circulation, and it promotes healing and improves the immune response. Chinese herbalists, this is even something that Chinese herbalists would use this combination. It's called this would be a metal enhancing formula, and it enhances the fire and water elements while reducing the wood and the earth elements. So as you get into Chinese medicine, their method of teaching, they put us into these different categories, and it's either an overactive condition or an underactive. And there's always other elements that are involved that bring you to the disease state that you're dealing with in the body. So a lot of the herbs that the Chinese medicine uses, they speak a different language. Some of these herbs, when you look them up and you cross-reference them, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I know what that is. That's, we call it something else in English, because they all have their Latin name.
All right, right.
And so, but they do use some things, there's some things that they use that we do not, but this particular combination is used to treat stress disorders, poor digestion, people that are convalescing, people that are, home from the hospital and trying to get built up after a surgery, or maybe there's something that they're dealing with, that they were sick, got them in the hospital, they're weak, they release them, send them home, you need to build them back up. This combination is excellent for that, and again, it's called THIM-J. But it's also used for fatigue, for infections, nausea. It is, it's used in conjunction with, you can use golden seal if you've got a bacterial infection. You can use, golden seal with the THIM-J. If you're dealing with a virus, you can add to the THIM-J, you can add echinacea. Echinacea is very, very good for taking care of virus in the body. And golden seal, myrrh, you can use the myrrh essential oil, 20 drops of myrrh into 3 tablespoons of coconut oil or fractionated coconut oil or a light virgin organic cold-pressed olive oil, and 3 tablespoons of that, 20 drops of myrrh. Actually do 10 drops of myrrh and 10 drops of frankincense. And rub that on the feet and reapply it. Within 2 to 3 minutes, that's in the bloodstream. It's pulled in through the skin, it's absorbed into the bloodstream. And that's something that works very well along with this combination to get somebody strong, well, and on their feet.
Right.
Okay. And then certainly, the protein drinks are an excellent way. When people are sick, it's pretty hard for them to sit down and if you're sick, you need 20% of your body energy to digest. When you're sick, you don't have all that extra reserve of energy. That's why soups are so important. Bone broth soups, where you're using carcasses or soup bones from grass-fed animals or naturally raised animals, and that bone broth base, you're going to simmer that for 2 to 3 days. I did a show on the bone broth soup, and it pulls all those nutrients out of the bone and the bone marrow. And then you can add some organic vegetables that they like, and add that to that and feed that to them. Otherwise, there's the protein drinks. That Love and Peas, 20 grams of protein to that. It's vegan. Everything is non-GMO. It's gluten-free. The Nature's Harvest, that leans a little more to the green drink, but I'm going to tell you, it's probably one of the most palatable green drinks that I've ever had or recommended to people, and that's what people say is, man, this stuff is delicious. And when people are sick and recovering at home, make it up with 1 scoop and add 4 to 6 ounces of purified cold water to that, and mix that up and have them drink that down. And in a couple hours, fix them another one, 4 to 6 ounces of it. And every so many hours, every 2, 3, 4 hours, fix them some more. Have them drink it down. Their body doesn't have to go through any work whatsoever to digest that down. So you're not taking away from the energy that the body is trying to build to recover, to overcome what you're dealing with. So it's just absorbed and into the bloodstream. And then, again, hopefully, in between, you're giving them some water with some lemon slices in it, maybe some cucumber slices, maybe some pineapple. Pineapple helps to aid the digestion, and it's also a high alkaline fruit. Asparagus, making a bone broth soup with a base and putting asparagus in it is a wonderful source for glutathione. And that is what releases that big macrophage, the big eaters in the immune system that get out there and seek and destroy things that have invaded the body. And it's one of the best sources of glutathione that you can take. This combination has rose hips in it that has bitter compounds that are bioflavonoids. And bioflavonoids, the presence of bioflavonoid helps for the iron to be absorbed. If you have a problem with being anemic and can't seem to, you're consuming foods that are high in iron, but it's not seeming to bring your energy level up and your hematocrit and iron levels are not good, you need to look at adding bioflavonoids into that, because bioflavonoids work with iron to be absorbed into the cell. So vitamin C always needs to be used with bioflavonoids for even the absorption of vitamin C. And then, the bioflavonoids and vitamin C are what strengthen the connective tissue. So if people, like I just had my birthday, I just turned 60, and people are like, 60? What? Come on, really? Really? No lines, no wrinkles. It's diet over the last almost 40 years. It's nutritional supplements. It's a diet high in bioflavonoids and vitamin C, so that the connective tissue is the glue. That's what keeps everything, attached. It's what keeps us all kind of congealed together. And it's very, very important in keeping your skin looking good, so that you don't have a lot of lines and wrinkles and stuff. Look at the people who, there's a lot of people that were smokers, where smoking, the nicotine destroys the vitamin C. So if vitamin C is being destroyed, then you're not absorbing bioflavonoids. You don't have the bioflavonoids in your diet, and it's destroying the vitamin C. It's going to break down that connective tissue. And so what you're going to get is you're going to get those teeny tiny little sagging of the skin where it starts to look real thin, because the body is going to take from its own tissue in order to maintain the status quo on keeping you going as long as possible.
Okay.
It's like I was talking last show or the show before about protein. Figuring out your protein intake. Take what your body weight is. If you're happy with what your body weight is, you take that body weight, you divide it by 2.2. That answer right there is how many grams of protein you need a day. Or if there's an ideal weight that you want, you take that ideal weight and you divide it by 2.2, and it gives you the protein requirement for that weight. And just remember, rule of thumb, an ounce of meat has about 7 grams of protein, an egg has 7 grams of protein. So, you start from there on doing a little simple math and figuring out what it is, how much you need to consume a day. Otherwise, if you don't have enough protein as you get older, your protein is going to be taken from your muscles. So a lot of people just figure, oh, well, I'm older, and that's why I don't have any muscle tone, and that's why my muscles have all gone away, because, I'm older. No, your muscles have gone away because you are neglecting giving your body the amount of protein that it needs in order to function. So it's going to steal it. It's going to take it from your muscles, and that's where it's going to be. It's like with diets and stuff. Some of these diets are crazy. And what that does to the immune system, I had a doctor tell me years ago that we need 600 calories a day. And that is just to feed your brain and your vital organs. If you go below that, you put yourself at a very dangerous risk for something very catastrophic, like, how about kidney failure? How about heart failure?
Wow.
Let's start there. There's 2 things right there. Either one of those, you're gone. You're gone. You more than likely are not going to come out of that one.
Wow.
So 600 calories a day. So you need to build above that.
Right.
For your muscles and ligaments and tendons, because your vital organs need 600 calories a day just for them to function. So very, very, extremely important. The thing with, again, with, rose hips being in this combination again has rose hips, broccoli, cabbage, Siberian ginseng, red clover, parsley, wheatgrass, and horseradish. So I just want to kind of go through these individually so that you can understand how this combination has the ability to be a very powerful antioxidant. It's also a nervine. And nervines feed the nervous system. And it's a tonic. Tonics are needed to help with convalescing and getting stronger and keeping the body as well as possible. And again, this is something that a couple of these can be opened up and emptied into one of those shakes. I mean, you don't have to present them with a handful of capsules. Well, here's your protein drink and here's a handful of capsules, because when you're sick, you're not messing with it. You're just not messing with it. You don't want to go through the energy to do it. You're sick. You're tired. You don't feel good. You want something to fill your stomach, feel a little better, and roll over and go to sleep. And that's okay, because your body does its greatest amount of healing when you're sleeping. but you've got to give it the nutrition that it needs in order to have the building blocks to get well. So in that, say, a protein drink, you mix the protein drink up, open and empty a few capsules into that, shake it up a few more times, and give it to them. And if you give them in small increments, it's not going to taste bad. They're going to get that down. Some of these herbs, you go adding them to the protein drinks, and you get a little sidetracked, and you come back to it 20 minutes or half an hour later. It's not going to taste real good. There are some herbs that's why it's wonderful to have them in capsules. But if you open and empty those capsules and get it in that protein drink pretty quick, and give them a small amount, 4 to 6 ounces, something that they can get down.
Right.
Okay, it's going to do okay. Vitamin C, the rose hips is extremely high in bioflavonoids, and so it's a great one in this combination. It contains it helps to decrease capillary fragility. And when people are sick, what do you notice? People who bruise a lot. There's a sign right there that they do not have enough bioflavonoids in their diet if they bruise easily. Okay. Because what happens is that bruising, it breaks those little capillaries, and it causes a little bleed out there, and that's what causes the bruising. The capillaries will be stronger and more flexible if you have a sufficient amount of bioflavonoids in your body. So we see that a lot with people who are sick. We see it a lot with our senior citizens and our, elderly people. And, as you get older, a lot of times, your appetite changes.
Right.
You don't eat as much as you did when you were certainly a child or a young adult. So just a lot of that bruising and easy bruising. Just know right off the bat, right off the top of your head, that, if you've got a loved one that goes through a lot of that excessive bruising, and children with excessive bruising, you need more, they need more vitamin C and bioflavonoids in their diet, and the first place to look to is your fresh fruit and your fresh vegetables. The astringent properties in rose hips help to shrink inflamed tissue and reduce the secretion of the mucus that's created in the body. Rose hips is also extremely excellent in treating the common cold, influenza, helping with fever, infection, inflammatory skin conditions, varicose veins. Rose hips, vitamin C. Oranges, when you peel an orange and it has the white fibrous outline under the peel.
Uh-huh.
Eat that. That's the bioflavonoids.
Okay.
That's where the bioflavonoids are at. Broccoli is the next thing added to this combination, and it as well has bitter compounds to that, bitter compound properties to the broccoli. And everybody knows how good broccoli is. It's a cruciferous vegetable. It helps the immune system. It's high in natural occurring sulfur. Natural occurring sulfur is handled very differently in the body than an inorganic sulfur. It's extremely important. Sulfur is extremely important for the immune system. There's vitamin C is present. Beta-carotene is high in protein. It's loaded with potassium. There's B-complex in it. Who thinks of broccoli with having all those nutrients in it when the little trees are laying on your plate? Okay, so, and I've got a granddaughter that'll now eat broccoli. Before I had to do juicing and put some of the broccoli flowers in there so that had to have enough pineapple in it to mask it. And it's been a slow process. She would never eat vegetables, but hey, she's eating more and more of them these days. Broccoli is an amazing vegetable to help to prevent illness and to help strengthen the immune system. Cabbage, here's another one, high antioxidant, loaded with healing properties. It's another cruciferous vegetable. It's high in natural occurring sulfur. That's what the smell is. When somebody's cooking that stuff, sometimes broccoli and cabbage, cauliflower, hey, sometimes that smell can linger for a few days in the house, So it's that sulfur. That's what it is that you're smelling. But, cabbage leaves shingles. This is a great remedy for shingles, is you peel some of those leaves off and you just put a tiny little bit of water in a stainless steel or a porcelain pan. And you put a lid over it, but you bring that up to a kind of a medium-high heat. And you get it to the point where those leaves are starting to bead up and to sweat, the leaves, the cabbage leaves. And when you get that, those pores of those leaves open up and it starts releasing the properties inside of the cabbage, the vitamin C, the riboflavin, the thiamine, the B complex, the potassium, beta carotene. When this is beating up and being released, you take those and let them cool down and lay them over where the shingles outbreak is at. It pulls the pain. People have said, wow, the pain is gone from the shingles. And when that beads up and starts releasing those nutrients, it helps to kill the virus that, the shingles, that comes from the chickenpox virus, and manages and takes care of that at its site location. And then it also helps with the healing of the tissue. So, cabbage leaves. Lightly steamed cabbage leaves. And then use that as a dressing over over an outbreak of shingles. Cabbage is used to treat skin disorders, and it's used as a preventative measures to strengthen the immune system. Siberian ginseng, now that's a ginseng that women can take. The other ginsengs like Korean and American ginseng, I kind of leave that just for men, but Siberian ginseng is very safe for women to take. And, the compounds that are in Siberian ginseng help in the balancing and production of DNA and RNA and proteins that are essential to the whole life process. It stimulates the adrenal glands and the pituitary glands. It lowers the blood sugar, reduces inflammation. Ginseng also increases the production of digestive fluids, and it's also a mild sedative. It's been used to treat anemia, insomnia, fatigue, weak digestion, failing memory, and it balances estrogen in the body. It balances testosterone in the body, and it tends to be higher in progesterone. And it is the progesterone properties in that naturally balance. And if you're too high in testosterone, brings it down to normal. If you're too high in estrogen, brings it down to normal. The next one is the red clover flowers. The red clover flowers are excellent source of calcium, chromium, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium. It's used to treat arthritis, jaundice, liver congestion, muscle cramps, inflammatory conditions throughout the body. It's an amazing blood purifier, and it's a wonderful source of iron. Parsley, very aromatic. It also decreases the thickness in heavy, thick mucus. And, if you're sick, the last thing you want to be doing is using anything that has a milk base, because milk itself produces mucus, excessive mucus. And you stop and think about the drinks that are lined out for the medical field to help, try to build you back up. And the base of that is milk, and not good. Also high fructose corn syrup is in it. But parsley, loaded with trace minerals. And parsley, we don't think about parsley as being an antibiotic. It has extreme, powerful antimicrobial properties to it. So parsley, not only for freshening the breath as well, and the high chlorophyll content of it to bring pH into balance in the body, but it's a wonderful thing for an antiviral, antibacterial. Loaded with trace minerals, it balances the electrolytes. So you see this Pedialyte stuff, I never used any of that stuff. I mean, the thing is, keep your kids well, feed them good. Make sure they got lots of a variety of the different colors of the food groups, and build health. Don't worry about what you got to have in the cabinet to back up for when they're sick. You don't want to think that way. You want them well. You want them always eating to the point where you know that you're covering your bases on the nutrients that they need for healthy cells. It's also extremely high as well in potassium, calcium, magnesium, loaded with vitamin A, very high in vitamin C. It's used to treat a variety of different infections. It's good for asthma as well. It's good for very, very good for kidney problems. It's a natural diuretic. And then there's wheatgrass. And, wheatgrass is another one of those super mega greens that is so nutrient dense. It's like alfalfa, which is called father of all, because the roots search out and gather up all those nutrients. And wheatgrass is extremely dense in nutrients, and it's also an excellent source of SOD. Superoxide dismutase, which is so important for immune function. It's an extremely potent natural antioxidant, and wheatgrass is used for very serious degenerative diseases, and that's because of how dense in nutrients that it is. It's used for degenerative diseases, used for fatigue, arthritis, and it itself, again, helps with building and strengthening the immune system. And the last one in this combination is horseradish. And everybody knows how potent and stimulating horseradish is.
Oh, yeah.
Just smelling that, will open those sinuses up and start releasing, getting the sinuses to flow. Great way to unstuff those sinuses. Also, it certainly increases the circulation. It's an excellent antiseptic. And when you ingest it, what happens? You usually start sweating. And sweating is a good way to release poisons through the skin. Our skin is our largest organ. And we can get rid of a lot of toxins through the skin. It as well decreases thickness of the mucus fluid in the body. So, it's real good for bronchitis, coughs, asthma, sinus problems, colds, where, you have a mucus condition. You need to thin out that mucus. You need to get it flowing. These are things that by taking them into the body, you promote and assist the body with what it needs to get that healing process going. Okay, so we're out of time today, and have a great week, and be back next week. Take care. God bless.